There are few things that can screw over an American citizen like the American government, no matter what the level. Michael Sullivan, a 64-year-old man in Massachusetts, was convicted of murder well before he was 64 because of evidence manufactured by the state police. He finally got out and had no life skills for the new world, and mental health issues from the trauma of what he dealt with in prison. The state of Massachusetts has a law in place to not allow themselves to actually pay back their victims, so Sullivan is unable to get the money awarded to him in a civil case against the state. While it is a pain that regular citizens are the ones who actually pay for the crimes of the state, someone needs to help Sullivan back from the trauma and crimes committed against him. He may never see the money he deserves, but he does deserve mental health treatment and a way to get valid job skills he does not have in a modern world. The government is not meant to destroy innocent people's lives when they need someone to convict. This man's story needs to be heard. Howdy, y'all. This is Paul, the Redneck Thinker. What we have here is a channel to communicate. I want you folks to be thinking by the time you leave my videos. Why? Because I'm tired of people talking via what other people tell them to think. So, watch my video and enjoy the chance to think for yourself. Now look, you can go to my Substack and research this for yourself. I'm about to tell you a long story here. For nearly 3 decades that he was behind bars, Michael Sullivan's mother and 4 siblings died. His girlfriend moved on with her life, and he was badly beaten in several prison attacks. By the way, this is all from the AP. All for a murder he long insisted he never committed. Earlier this month, the 64-year-old Sullivan got a degree of justice when a Massachusetts jury ruled that he was innocent of a 1986 murder and robbery of Wilfred McGrath. He was awarded $13 million, though state regulations cap rewards at $1 million for wrongful convictions. The jury also found a state police chemist falsely testified at a trial through his testimony isn't what guaranteed Sullivan's conviction. It's the latest in a string of convictions that have been overturned in the state in recent years. The most important thing is finding me innocent of murder or sponging it from my record, said Sullivan, speaking at the Framingham, Massachusetts office of his lead attorney, Michael Heineman. The money, of course, will be very helpful to me. A spokesman for the Massachusetts Attorney General said, "We respect the jury's verdict and are evaluating whether an appeal is appropriate." Sullivan was convicted of murder and armed robbery in 1987 after police say McGrath was robbed and beaten and his body dumped behind an abandoned supermarket. Authorities zeroed in on Sullivan after they learned his sister had been out with McGrath the night before the murder and the two had gone to the apartment she shared with Sullivan. Another suspect in the murder, Gary Grace, implicated Sullivan and had his murder charges dropped. Grace testified at the trial that Sullivan was wearing a purple jacket that night of the murder, and a former state police chemist testified that he found blood on the jacket and hair consistent with McGrath, not Sullivan's. Sullivan was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison. Grace, meanwhile, pleaded guilty to accessory after a murder and was sentenced to 6 years. Emil Petrola, who beat McGrath and helped dispose of his body, pleaded to second-degree murder. He was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole, but he died in prison. Sullivan said, "I couldn't believe I was convicted of murder," said, recalling prosecutors mentioning the purple jacket 5 times in their closing argument. "My mother was crying in the courtroom. My brother was crying. I was crying. It was very hard for me and my family." Prison would prove a nightmare for Sullivan. He had his nose almost bitten off in one attack and nearly lost an ear in another. And because he was a lifer, the prison system didn't allow him to take any classes to gain much needed skills. "It's very hard on a person, especially when you know you're innocent," Sullivan said. "And prison is a bad life, you know. Prison is a tough life." But in 2011, Sullivan's fortunes changed dramatically. Sullivan's attorney requested DNA testing, which had not been available for the first trial that found no blood on the coat. The testing also found substances on the coat did not contain McGrath's DNA and did not determine if the hair found on the jacket belonged to him. Dana Curhan, a Boston attorney who represented Sullivan from 1992 until 2014, pushed for the DNA testing, said Sullivan, and always told him McGrath's blood wasn't on the jacket, but he was surprised to learn there wasn't any blood, which undermined the prosecutor's argument that Sullivan had beaten McGrath into a blood pulp. At the prosecutor's closing, he essentially said, "Hey, if he wasn't the one who did it, why did they find blood on both cuffs of the jacket?" Curhan said. He kept repeating that. Now, we don't have any blood nor DNA match. You would expect someone doing what he was alleged to have done to be covered in blood. There is no blood. That really was the case. A new trial was ordered in 2012, and Sullivan was released in 2013. He spent the first 6 months on home confinement and had to wear an electronic monitoring bracelet for years. "When I walked out the front door, I was in an emotional state," he said. In 2014, the Supreme Court upheld a decision to grant Sullivan a new trial, and in 2019, the state decided against retrying the case. At the time, the Middlesex District Attorney Marian Ryan said it was virtually impossible for her office to successfully retry the case against Sullivan given the deaths of some witnesses and a diminishment of the memory of other potential witnesses. Sullivan admits he shut down after he was released and to this day struggles to function in a world that changed dramatically while he was in prison. Before he was arrested, he worked at a peanut factory and planned to go to school to become a truck driver and eventually work for his brother who owned a trucking company. Instead, he left prison with no job prospects and little hope of finding work. He still can't use a computer and mostly helps his sister with odd jobs. His girlfriend, whom he had known since he was 12, would visit him for a decade in prison, but eventually had to go on with her life. "I'm still really not adjusted to the outside world," Sullivan said, adding that he spends much of his time with his Yorkshire Terrier, Buddy, and pigeons that he keeps at his sister's house. "It's hard for me," he said. "I don't go nowhere. I'm scared all the time. I'm pretty much a loner." Sullivan's sister, Donna Faria, said the family never for a minute believed that he killed McGrath. They were at the trial in support and would talk with Sullivan twice a week while he was in prison and visited him every few months. But Faria laments all that Sullivan lost while in prison, noting he never had kids, never married like the rest of us did. "If he didn't have me, my brother would have been walking the streets like a lot of the homeless people," Faria said. "It's almost like he don't trust people. If he is around his family, he feels safe. If he is not, he doesn't." These days, Sullivan spends most of his time at Faria's house in Billerica, Massachusetts, and often does her family's laundry like he did for the fellow inmates while in prison. Despite the jury awards, Sullivan doesn't expect that his life will change all that much. Sullivan will treat himself to a new truck, but he said he wants to save most of the money to ensure his nieces and nephews have what they need when they turn 21. Sullivan hasn't been getting any therapy for the hardship he endured, but his attorney Heineman said he plans to ask the court as part of the judgment to provide him with the therapy and educational services. "They'll have money. That will make me very happy," he said. "The most important thing is my nieces and nephews taking care of them." This man should not have ended up this way. Oh, and if you don't mind, like, subscribe, comment. And I've got a link tree down below that's got my social media, and it has my Patreon if you want to help out. Thank y'all. Now, I don't know what you're thinking, but if that story doesn't turn your stomach a little bit at the fact that the state can destroy a person's life like that. He had dreams. They may not have been grandiose dreams, but he was going to be a productive member of society. He would have had a chance to have what you have. Think about that. Even if you have never been in prison, which there have been way too many people that have been to prison, then you wouldn't understand what he's been through. I've never been to prison. I don't understand what this man's been through. That's just it. We shouldn't have to try to understand. The only people that should be going through this are the actual guilty people. They keep doing this to folks because they need victims to convict. They need to have people to convict so they can get that next they can get elected, or they can get whatever little thrill that they get from convicting somebody. I don't know what's the best solution on this. I'm glad that there's DNA testing now, but this man's life was ruined because of everything. And them keep wanting to fight to get him back in prison. That is just idiotic. I don't know what to say about that part of it, though. But that's modern injustice system. This has been Paul, the Redneck Thinker. Y'all have a good day. Bye. Folks, I just want to say thank you for listening. I want to thank you for taking your time. I want to hear what your comments are about what you think on this topic, because your comments are what's important, not necessarily mine. I don't care if you're Republican. I don't care if you're conservative. I don't care if you're liberal. I don't care if you're Democrat. I want to hear your opinion on these topics. I want to thank you yet again for listening to my video. Like, subscribe, and all that other hoopla. This has been Paul, the Redneck Thinker. Y'all have a good day now. Bye.